I can completely understand why people are criticizing Billy Joe Saunders for taking on Shefat Isufi, because he had the opportunity to fight for the WBO middleweight title against Demetrius Andrade, and he pulled out. He turned it down. Decided to move up in weight and fight this guy who actually lost to an Anthony Yarde opponent earlier on in his career. This is someone who I had never heard of before this fight was made. I had to go check him out on BoxRec to find out who the hell this guy was. Doesn't have any credible wins on his resume. As I say, he's been beaten by an Anthony Yarde opponent, which shows you what kind of level he's at. He is an actually bigger guy than Billy Joe. That's one thing that has to be said. But again, I understand why people are criticizing Billy Joe for turning down the Andrade fight, taking on this guy instead, particularly after both Billy Joe and his promoter Frank Warren criticized Andrade, and also Billy Joe's fans. They criticized Andrade for being a paper champion because he got a vacant belt against an unknown opponent. And now Billy Joe is going and doing the same thing. He's fighting for a vacant belt against an unknown opponent, doing the exact thing which he and Frank Warren and his fans criticized Andrade for doing. The difference in this case is that Andrade didn't turn any fight down and take that vacant title fight instead. No, Andrade didn't turn the Billy Joe fight down. Billy Joe failed a PED test. Andrade was ready to go ahead with that fight. So it wasn't Andrade's fault that he fought for a vacant belt. But in this instance, it is Billy Joe's fault that he's fighting for a vacant belt against an unknown opponent. He chose to do that. No opponent failed a PED test. It was all Billy Joe and Frank Warren's choice. So I can understand the criticism for this fight. I can also understand people being critical of Billy Joe because at the press conference for this Isufi fight, he was saying that Golovkin and Canelo have ducked him. Again, I understand people's criticism for that. But me personally, when it comes to this fight, Billy Joe versus Isufi, being put on at the Lamex Stadium, the stadium for Stevenage Football Club, I personally don't hate the fight being on at this particular venue. I've seen a lot of people ridiculing it. A lot of people saying, oh, this is Frank Warren's attempt at a stadium fight. You know, he's going to try to sell this as a stadium fight when really and truly it's at a very, very low level football ground, which barely passes for what you would call a stadium. I mean, look here, people, this is the seating area at Stevenage. There is no higher tier than this. That's the blue sky you're seeing above here. So this is a very, very small football club. Stevenage, you know, I'm not sure what division they're in at the moment. And I know they've done fairly well for a small club, but, you know, they're certainly not one of the bigger clubs around. They're a very small club and a relatively poor club, as you see by the state of their football ground. So, like I say, I've seen people ridiculing it and, you know, making fun of it and all that. But I personally like it because Billy Joe is from just down the road, right? He's from Hatfield. I believe he was born in Welwyn Garden City, or at least has lived part of his life in Welwyn Garden City and now lives in Hatfield, which is not too far from Stevenage. It's all in Hertfordshire. Frank Warren himself lives in Hertfordshire. So it's a fight which is going to attract Billy Joe's local supporters. And I think it's going to be good for the area. You know, they're going to put local Hertfordshire talent on the undercard, apparently, of this show. And yeah, I personally like it. All fights, all world title fights don't have to happen at the O2. They don't all have to happen at the Manchester Arena. They don't all have to happen at Wembley or at the Principality Stadium. I like the idea of putting them on at different venues, you know, areas in the UK which have maybe been deprived of boxing shows. And as I say, particularly this one here, Billy Joe's local to the area. So putting one of his fights on at Stevenage, I think that's quite a cool idea, to be honest with you. Look, Billy Joe is not a pay-per-view fighter. Billy Joe is not a national star in the UK. So you can't expect him to be going down the same road as an Anthony Joshua or, a Dylan White, one of the bigger names in the UK. You can't expect him to be matching those guys, going to the same venues, doing the same things. They're trying something creative here. They're trying something a bit different. They're trying to make this an event which people in Hertfordshire are going to support. And I can assure you, when it comes to Stevenage, this is going to be a very big deal in that town. It's a small town. So this is going to be a big deal. And it's going to be a big deal for Hertfordshire. I think people from all over Hertfordshire are going to come and support this event because they don't often get big events in that part of the country. And it's not too far from London, but, for a lot of people who are local to there, they don't often get big events. So there's going to be a lot of excitement surrounding this. Now, I have seen Frank Warren say that it's actually going to be easier for people from North London to get to this fight at Stevenage Football Ground than it will be to get to the O2, which is in South London. Now, I'm not so sure about that because when it comes to traveling from North London to the O2, you can do it completely on public transport, on the trains. So you can get virtually from door to door. If you hop on a train at, Finsbury Park, you can get to Stevenage in like 20 minutes on certain trains. But then from Stevenage, you're going to have to, get a bus, get a cab to the actual venue, to Stevenage Football Ground, because, it's not like London where you've got trains and tubes everywhere, and Stevenage is not like that. And the football ground must be, over a mile away from Stevenage train station. And if you're not familiar with the area, then what are you going to do? You use Google Maps and walk there? No, you're probably going to have to get a cab or a bus or whatever the case may be. And given the fact that there might be thousands of people doing the same thing as you, those buses might be rammed. Those cabs might be in short supply because this is a small town. This ain't a big city, Stevenage. So, I'm not so sure that it's going to be quicker to get from North London to Stevenage Football Ground than it would be to get from North London to the O2. I'm not so sure. Okay, I'm not saying it is not, but I'm not so sure about that. It remains to be seen. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Billy Joe fighting Isufi at Stevenage. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.